Hello and welcome to this Blender tutorial. Today we're going to be going over to do the effect you just saw in the start video, so without any further delay, just get right in. We're going to start off with the starter file here. It comes with a camera preset to the right dimensions, at least for the photo I took, as well as a couple other items for effects. So what we're going to do is first go into camera view, and we're going to need a background image. So if go to this panel, if it's not opened up, press N, it'll open and close it. Check background images, add an image. We're going to be starting off with I believe it was this one is where we're going to be starting with. Alright, and let's just drag the opacity up all the way so we can see what we're doing better. Add a plane, center it in the center of the figure. Deselect one vertex in edit mode, delete all the others. Take that one vertex, stick it right down at the foot, or just wherever. It doesn't actually really matter where, somewhere on the edge. What we're going to do is take this vertex, extrude it to another one, and then just use this to end up creating a line around this figure. So what this will do is then, once we have this figure outlined, then to make a face and make it a single object, and then texture it the way the picture is, so it'll look like an actual person, but it'll be in a 3D space. So if we want this to go faster, you can press and hold E. Every time you click, it'll place a new vertex. Alright, for the sake of time in this tutorial, I am not going to go all the way around here. I have already traced out this figure in layer 3 here. So this is what it's like when fully traced. Except for, I can't remember why I had a couple extra vertices here. Just get rid of those, they'll mess some stuff up. Okay, so here we have the figure fully traced. Now, once it's all the way traced out, just press F, and it'll make it all into a single face. Turn on face normal, just make sure it randomly generates the direction to normal, and sometimes it doesn't get it right, but it seems to be facing the camera this time, so we're all good on that. Alright. So then in order to get the picture projected on top of this cutout, to make it an actual cutout of a picture, you need to, in edit mode, select everything and press U, project from view. Make sure camera bounds is selected in this box that pops up here. That's very important. Then go into materials, add new material. It should be shadeless. Go over into textures, add an image texture, the same image we've been using for the tracing, and make sure you have that UV map selected. And now, just as simple as that, we now have these two figures. Now, once again, for the sake of time in this tutorial, I have, in this other file, the bit file, which is also in the description, I have traced out two sets of figures we are going to be using. And also in this file, I have the helicopter once again, and some other effects that I'm not don't have time to go over. The helicopter is just it's nothing real special, just something I threw together for this project. Actually, I think I had it from an older file. I just redid some of the textures to make it look a little better. It's kind of a throw together. You can probably use something a lot better of your own. This rifle shell is a pretty simple cylinder with a few extruded parts. Like a bajillion mod. I can't remember how it's printed, with some text to give it that look at the bottom. And this is literally a copy and paste from my gun flash tutorial. That's all that is. So what we are going to be dealing with next is these two groups of figures. We need to position them in a way that makes sense. So we're going to go to camera view. Side our camera is going to be positioned about here. Now I want this team to be farther back than the other ones. These are just work on positioning of these. You want to have them on at different depths, some closer to the camera, some farther away. It'll help give you that depth effect later. And also I want a gap in the middle so I can see where the other people are. Alright, that looks good. There's no reason to be exact on any of this. So in the other layer, looks a little too close. Let's back them up a bit. That looks good. So now we just need to stack them up. A little too close. Alright, and that looks good. So we have our two teams positioned like this. So the next we're going to do is add a backdrop, just the background. We're going to add a plane. Just press U, unwrap into just a standard unwrap mesh. Go into textures or materials, once again a shadeless material. In textures, then add an image with the image you are using for the background. This one I just took down the local retention pond. Alright, one thing you'll notice is this is a little bit stretched. So especially if you look at the cars, those don't look right. So we're going to scale on the y-axis until those tell us the correct ratio. Until those cars look correct. It's a little thin, so about there. So we're going to just stick this way behind everything. That's probably far enough. And then get it to face the camera. One handy tip for doing this is select first the object, then first the object, then the camera. Go into object settings. Under rotation, go to copied selected for all three axes. Alright, and then just scale that up. And there we have our background in place. I want it to be a little wider than what the camera is seeing now. Looks good. And also, we are going to go position our helicopter. Alright, so I have all the helicopter things selected, so I can move this as no, I do not want to move the background. So this moves as a unit. The helicopter to kind of sit about there or so. Let's head to material. This might take a little bit to load. Oops. Okay, one mistake I made. You can see here. I put the helicopter behind the backdrop. Look very good if we can't see the helicopter. And now it's a bit big. Just kind of tilt it back. It's kind of flaring out. It's kind of flaring out for a landing. All right, and we look good. Now, one thing I kind of forgot I've already added in this file is we want the helicopter blades to moving slowly. That's just a simple keyframe here. Nothing complicated about it. And same thing for the back rotor. Once again, this is not exactly a tutorial for absolute beginners. I'm assuming you know how to do some basic things here, like basic animations. Okay, so then we want our clip to be a bit longer than the, well, it's about, we're running at 24 frames, it's about 10 seconds. We want it to be more like 15 seconds. So 24 times 15, that'll give us 15 seconds worth of time, or 360 frames in this case. Alright, so next what we're going to do is actually record the camera path. To do this, we're going to be using the auto key feature. Just going to enable that. And we're going to be using this mode here. What it does is, if you press Shift F, lets the camera move around free. It's apparently useful for some game development purposes. I haven't used it much for that. But it's useful in this case because we can pan the camera around however we like. So we're going to play and then quickly enable that and start moving around our scene, and it'll record where the camera goes. So then should probably be good. So if we jump, oops. Okay, I have to have the wait. Okay, you have to have the camera in the same layer you're working in, otherwise it won't work for some reason. Let's just go and reset. But also, don't take things too fast. Things are supposed to be moving slow, so we'll try to move them fast. It's good. Let's try that again. Alright. So if we look at the playback, a little fast at the beginning there, but it looks good. You may have to try this several times before you get it correct, but this one seemed to work first go. Kind of unusual. Since we add the helicopter in, which I did not add in because it would slow things down, things are running slower, but if we skip ahead, the animation should play and end up towards the end somewhere near where the helicopter is. A little off the mark, but should look good. So if it's faded out right there. Alright, so I'm just going to be going over a few other effects before we're done here. But as you can see, that is most of it. We already have a scene where everyone's staying still. Oh, whoops. One issue here you might want to be careful of. Don't let the camera get past the backdrop like this, because then you'll be seeing gray in the background, or should be an image. So let's just scale it up until it's... No, I do not want auto key on anymore. Scale it up until it's past where the camera sees. And we don't seem to be having any more issues. Not seeing anything else that goes beyond camera view. And it looks good. Okay, so if we want this camera to end up right where the helicopter is, we're just going to have to shift the helicopter a bit. That's where it passes by. Then we just take the helicopter. Oops. I do not want, once again, backdrop is not what I want here. Let's move the helicopter over here. So it'll zoom right in there. And let's just end the clip here. So that's what it looks like at the start then. Helicopter's hovering right above them now. And if we skip towards the end. Come on. Alright, and it ends up inside the helicopter. So looks very good that is. Alright, so there's just one more thing I'm going to add in here. It's how to get a gun flash to fade in and out realistically for this scene. So I'm going to move that into layer 2. And I'll get to the bullet casings in a minute. Alright, so we're going to have this guy here have his gun firing during the time. Now normally a gun flash is on and off in a frame, just to give that brief quick look. However, here time is much slowed down. It's not going to be on and off in a frame. It's going to have to come into effect and then fade out slowly. And so we want the line, so there's a little bit of it behind the character object like that. And we want to decide where we want him to fire. So let's see. About here is where he's kind of centered, so it makes sense. Alright, so we want the flash to be at its biggest here. We're going to press I, add a scaling keyframe, jump about 10 or 15 frames back, scale to 0. Press I, scaling again. So we are going to go about the middle. Actually closer to at that scaling keyframe. Set keyframes for density and emission. Another 10 frames forward, another several frames forward, and set those both to 0. So that'll cause the gun flash to slowly fade out instead of just scaling back, which looks much more realistic. And then finally we are going to add bullet shells getting kicked out. So it's a pretty simple, just a particle system. Add a plane, make it completely transparent so the plane itself doesn't show up in the render. Add a particle system. Let's see. So we want about 6 shells getting kicked out in 150. The time doesn't matter. These are going to end up being frozen. And render as an object as a bullet shell. No, I call it a rifle shell. There we go. Okay, so let's just get that positioned about right. Tilted with the blue arrow there, facing a little bit up and a little bit back. Now on field weights, we are going to set the gravity to 0. We're going to set minute of geometry normal to 0.02 and random to 0.005. I think that's about right. Now, I'll also set the lifetime for each particle way up. And these are being emitted a bit too close to each other, spread out, say up to 200. Okay, these are just moving too slow. Let's up it to 0.1. Might be a bit fast. Actually, that's decent. Alright, a little bit more randomness. So we get a little bit of spread. Looks good. Next, just check on rotation. Have it a random dynamic rotation. Looks good. There we go. So now this is about where I want the placement. So under modifiers, just hit convert. And then go in and find this plane. Delete it. So then these are now the actual meshes generated by the particle system. So they are frozen in place. And when you kind of move around, they are 3D objects and 3D environments, and they will move as so. So then the music and all music and sound effects, I basically use the same things I have done in the Blender VFX tutorial on how to improve your shot to look better. So that is all that is a tutorial. I mean, that's literally it. You just made this scene. Thank you very much for watching.